Hello, Janelle. Thank you so much for kicking things off. That takes guts, and I think you're not. This is not the first time you've kicked off a critique. So good job, really good job. Okay, so I'm going to go to your PDF. Thank you so much for including your PDF, and I'm glad I did because one thing I noticed immediately after opening the PDF that I would not have noticed in this version in your body copy is the size of your pages. Now you're at tabloid here, which means you're at 17 by 11, and that's just enormous. Just enormous. That means each of your pages is 8.5 by 11. So that said, that gives me a lot of information, gives us a lot of information to be able to look at this page and ascertain a few things about the success and the presentation of the type. Number one, being an 8.5 by 11 page right here, I highly recommend that you do this. Take this page, the one with no images, and print it out. And you're going to see that your type is just enormous. It's going to be very large. I'm guessing you're at 12 here, 12 point type. So that's pretty big. And the reason that's so large and the reason why it's just not working like this is because you haven't really paid attention to your grid at all. I mean, basically, you're just laying these text blocks out, and you've done it all over on every page. You're just laying them out the width of the page. And, as we've studied the grid for the last couple of weeks, I think that we're pretty much should be pretty well convinced by now that using the grid to align things and to use the page more mathematically than the approach of just putting something and centering it. I think that should be apparent by now. So that is my first recommendation. My second recommendation is the, let me see, let me look at my notes, hold on. Okay, centered type, yeah, this is your centering type on, you're just centering. You're not centering left with the left line. You're just centering. So that's why you're getting all these crazy spaces like right here and here and here. And I think I read through and I think Carrie gave you some really good tips on setting up InDesign. I've also got some excellent settings for InDesign that will allow you to set your justified type with the spaces and the unusual word and letter spacing in mind. It's not going to come out of the can like this, so to speak. There are some things you're going to have to do with this justified type. Speaking of justified type, don't fall in love with justified type. Every time I teach type, I really have to get through to students that, justified type, it's not the only solution, and it's very rarely the right solution. We can see a lot of rivers right here, and I think the spacing, I'm not going to say anything more about it because I think we've covered that enough. But left aligned, right rag is, boy, I hate to say a designer's choice, but it just seems to be that most designers design that way. I have been for years. I do not touch justified type. Never did. Never. And I learned old school. That's why. I shouldn't say never. I think I justified or center type on an invitation once or twice. But so I am no fan of center type. And there's going to be a lot of type purists who agree with me on that. There is a time and place for everything. Don't get me wrong, please. There is a time and place for everything. But I just don't think centering body copy is an interesting or unusual solution. So I would rethink that. Centered type grid, headlines. Yes, that's the next thing I wanted to mention is these relationships here. You have these wonderful little typographic compositions going on here, but they just kind of stop right there. Can you emulate this over here at your subheads? And I also want you to notice that you see this type right here, that has got to be continued through. That's your headline. That's your style. That's it. That should be your H1, so to speak. Okay? Now, what you need to do is decide, okay, so that album covers there should look like this. Or whatever your H2 would be. They need to be consistent. So your headlines, your subheads, and your section heads all have to be consistent from page to page. That's critical for the success of this project. Okay, now in summary, and I think again, I'm not going to summarize, I'm just going to say, I think that the two main things that I'm really, really concerned about are the use of the grid and the size of the pages. So think about the grid, please. Excuse me. Really think about the grid. It's so important. Excuse me. It's so important to design within the grid. It might be that one of the top 3 tools that you'll work with and that you have in your arsenal as a graphic designer is the grid. So we got a lot of examples. I'm going to leave an example with this review. I'll leave a link to an example, and I also it's going to be the Lupton book, Ellen Lupton's book on grids. And if you look at the modular grid there, you can see some wonderful examples of how, let's say, something like a 4x4 grid would work and how type would be placed within those modules of a 4x4 grid. So, all right, so I will leave that, and if you have any questions at all, please feel free to get with me. Okay, thanks very much.